Set. Do I need a
Okay, we're
sound
rolling
check?
now. Nope,
I-
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we've been
Okay.
talking all along.
Yeah, okay.
Well, here we go. So
Yeah.
I'd love for you just to introduce yourself, talk to, kind of as if you were introducing yourself to a class of students,
Sure.
a little bit about your story, how you came to be where you are now, what you're doing, and the role that you play in your community.
Sure. My name is Salam al-Maryati. My parents fled Iraq in 1963, so they took me from there, and we ended up in Phoenix, Arizona. I grew up in Phoenix in the 60s and 70s. Went to high school there, and then came to college here at UCLA. And throughout that time, I was always following the news, especially when it involved Muslims or the Middle East. And there was always something missing there. I didn't understand why it always had that negative connotation, negative spin. And even I carried anti-Muslim tropes as a young Muslim because that's what I was exposed to throughout my lifetime. And if it weren't for my parents, who at least provided the alternative, I wouldn't know any better. And so growing up, I realized that many Americans felt the same way, that there was something wrong with Islam and Muslims because that's what they were exposed to. And so I always wanted to do something to change that, not just for me as a Muslim, but for all Americans, to make peace between Islam and the West. There's that lie that the West is at war with Islam or Islam is at war with the West. And that lie is being promoted by extremists. Unfortunately, the extremists are dictating the discourse on Islam in America or Islam in the world. And so I always wanted to do something about that and do something in terms of peacemaking. So at first I thought I'd be a teacher. Then my dad said, no, you have to be either an engineer or a doctor. So I tried both. I didn't like either. And I decided on being committed to a full-time activist in the Muslim community. So in 1986, we started the Public Relations Committee for the Islamic Center of Southern California. It was a mosque. And I believe I was one of the first full-time employees of any Muslim organization throughout the United States at that time. And so from that, we developed the Muslim Public Affairs Council in 1988 that engaged the public officials and the media to make Islam known and to talk about policies that not just affect Muslims, but affect all of us Americans, those policies that are related to Islam. And that's what we have here now. The Muslim Public Affairs Council was an office in Los Angeles that focuses on Hollywood and media, and an office in Washington, D.C. that focuses on public policy. And now we have 10 or 12 full-time employees, and I'm the president of the organization. And we engage community, we engage those in Washington, D.C., we engage public officials at all levels, and we engage the media. But at the end of the day, what we want is, what we want are two things. We want for American Muslims to control the narrative about ourselves and to be talked to, not talked about. And number two, we want Americans to recognize the vital contributions of Muslims in America, in science, in sports, in culture, in news, in international peacemaking and international relief, in religion, and to recognize the contributions of American Muslims. Therefore, it would make Islam a positive, integral, enriching element of American pluralism and support the integration of Muslims throughout America. And that's important because in Europe, when we look at the Muslim community, they are not integrated. They're isolated, they're alienated, they're actually ethnic ghettos. And the worst example, unfortunately, is in France, with Algerian, Moroccan communities in the suburbs of Paris, but actually living in ethnic enclaves. And so there's a conspiracy theory that the Muslims in France are taking over, not just in that country, but throughout the Europe.